And welcome, folks, to another episode of the .NET Doc Show. This is 60 minutes of unscripted .NET entertainment, and as doctors of .NET, we prescribe chocolatey, nougaty goodness. I'm your host, Scott Addy, just another Scott, with co-hosts David Hine and Cam Soper. I'd like to welcome today's guest, Rehan.
Hi there.
Please say hi to the audience and just briefly introduce yourself.
Hello. I've been working at Microsoft for a couple of years now, but working in open source for a lot longer. I run a few .NET projects and blog a little bit. That's pretty much me.
Thank you. As always, thank you for joining the show. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day and your busy schedule to share with the community what you've been working on, what you're passionate about. And with that, why don't we transition into the Checkup Doc segment for today?
Yeah, today's checkup is relevant to our hallway conversation. We're going to be focusing on creating a GitHub action with .NET. There's lots of chatter there. Ooh, someone's typing. GitHub actions are amazing. A lot of folks have been writing them and using them and consuming them. And you may or may not have known, you can actually write them with .NET. So you can have C# GitHub actions. And this tutorial walks you through that. So basically, you'll need a GitHub account. The prereqs, call for .NET 5 because we're bleeding edge. Why not? You're going to use Visual Studio. And the intent of this app is to really work inside the context of a composition. So it's not your single GitHub action that's entirely being used. It's other GitHub actions as well. The GitHub action that you'll author is just one aspect of it. But the intent is to actually do code metrics. So it's going to maintain a markdown file inside your repository that will represent the code metrics for your repository. So your C# or VB bits. So the app has some action inputs, pretty boring POCO that just defines some of the different things that are required. And then the application itself, I actually have the app opened up in Visual Studio, so we'll look at it there instead. So one of the things that you'll need to do to prepare your .NET app for GitHub Actions is it has to be containerized. It has to run as a Docker container because there's only two flavors of GitHub Actions that exist. That's JavaScript, so you can write, with TypeScript and compile down to JavaScript, or a Docker container, so anything that can be containerized. So in this case, a .NET app is perfectly viable. So our Docker file defines our SDK bits, and this is our build environment. So we're going to copy over all of our stuff. We're going to run publish, and we're going to define a couple labels. These labels are not really necessary. They're defined actually in an action YAML later on. And then we're going to, yep.
Hey, Dave, can you zoom in just a little bit for us?
Yeah. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Sweet. So then we are going to copy over our build output into our new layer. And where our entry point is .NET for our .NET GitHub Action DLL. And then from there...
Is there anything different about that Docker file compared to just like the Visual Studio, hey, give me a Docker file thing?
No, there's not too many differences. This does some labeling. Again, some of that stuff's just, it's noise at this point. Essentially all you're doing is pulling from the MCR, which is the Microsoft Container Registry. It's just a syndication of the official Docker Hub one. We're pulling down to the .NET 5 SDK. We're kind of aliasing that as our build environment. We're going to copy over all of our build environment bits from that layer, and then we're going to say publish our .NET app. So it's going to build it as a release configuration, and we're going to put it in an output directory. And then once that's there, then we are able to relayer and just copy over our output from our build. So we'll end up with all of our executables, like our DLLs and whatnot. And then we define our entry point. So then we have a .NET containerized application that can be called from a GitHub action, right?
So basically, we can do whatever we want inside that, right? So we can
Any-
call
yeah.
any
Anything.
API, any whatever.
Anything, exactly. Yep.
Cool.
And then from there, you get to define action inputs and outputs. So there's an action.yaml file, and this YAML file basically defines what your GitHub action will look like if it's published to the marketplace. So you can have like the title of your thing, the description, and they actually have well-known and clearly identified branding. So you have icons and colors, and this is what your thing will actually look like whilst in the GitHub marketplace for GitHub Actions. And then you get to define your inputs and your outputs. So actions can have things that they require, basically parameters into them. And they can also define outputs, things that they promise to communicate as a result of running them. And then from here, you say runs using Docker. Here's the image is our Docker file, which is sitting there in the repository, and then the various arguments. And then from that, we get into what's called workflow composition. And workflow composition is kind of a phrase that I coined. I haven't heard it anywhere else, but really what it is composing various GitHub actions together in a workflow file. So you are responsible for writing an individual piece of it. And then your jobs and steps, the steps are really the composition part, right? So we've got a .NET code metrics name on push to main, any of these paths. So everything that's inside here, any files except for our code metrics markdown file. And we're going to call it analysis. It's going to run on Ubuntu latest. And then our steps are a composition of various GitHub actions. So we are going to rely on the checkout version 2. So this is going to check out all of that, the source code into the VM that it spins up on Ubuntu. And it's going to have all of that source code at a point in time. And then from there, we can call our GitHub action that we actually wrote, right? The .NET code metrics. So we're just pointing to .NET samples. This is where this lives, a GitHub action at main. And then we're going to pass in a greeting message, and we have with. This is where you'll specify your inputs. So from the context of this workflow YAML, we're going to pass in a contextual object, which is GitHub's repository owner, the repository, the ref, and the directory that we want to analyze. And then, so that's 2 GitHub actions so far. And then the third one is the create pull request. So since this GitHub action, like the composition of this action is to really maintain a GitHub code metrics file, markdown file for you, if there's changes, right? If there's been updated metrics, this is one of the outputs, it'll actually create a pull request for you from Peter Evans. He has a create pull request GitHub action. So that's our composition. The sample's available out on our samples browser. And I just wanted to show that if we uncheck GitHub here and we have C# checked, we've got 1,800 plus C# sample source code projects for anyone around the world to check out. If we filter it to GitHub, we only have one, just the one so far. We're going to be adding more of those. That's the plan. But here is the YAML file again. And then this is the actual output. This is the code metrics markdown file inside the samples repo. So I encourage you to go check it out. And you can check out all the source code. It's lots of fun. But basically, it creates and maintains this code metrics file for you on your behalf. You'll get pull requests as the source code within this directory change based on GitHub actions. And I had fun kind of organizing how this markdown file would be created. I've got the feels good Quake reference here going on. So we can see that in this project, the .NET code analysis, there's 3 namespaces, 16 name types, 2,600 total lines of source code, approximately 643 lines of executable code. And then we've got like the cyclomatic complexity of 17. So we're saying that's pretty high. And then each of these individual namespaces are drilled down. So you can click into this one and you can see that in this namespace, we've got this many things. And then these are the name types within that. So you can keep scrolling down, right? They'll have like the So the document file info, this class here, here's all the different methods and properties, the number of lines, the maintainability index, all of those different things. And
okay, hold on. So, what are you using to generate all this data? Because I of course, obviously, the document that you're showing here walks us through creating this project that generates this really groovy Markdown file and the pull request for it and all that. What does actually generating that analysis look like?
So code metrics has existed for a long time. In fact, if you were to go do code metrics right now from Visual Studio, you right click on it, you say solution, you can say, where is it now? Going to make me a liar. Analyze and code cleanup. You can do calculate code metrics. And this will actually do the same thing that I did. Roslyn has it natively available, and it's part of the integration with Visual Studio. So these things here, I had to reverse engineer and make kind of pseudo cross-platform and able to invoke and call from .NET 5. I worked a bit with Jared Parsons, and it's been a lot of fun. As you know, we're on Windows right now inside of Visual Studio, and this is what you get out of the box. But I took all of that knowledge, and the app's available. Anyone can go look at it, but it's just these two projects, two projects within the solution. It's up on samples, and I don't want to take too much away from our guest today, but so it's a simple top-level statement. This is what the container calls up, and basically the start analysis is all custom code here. So it just rips apart, analyzes it, and creates the Markdown file. So let's that was a lot. So yeah, there's a lot.
Before we move on to the hallway track, I want to double click just for a second because I don't want to take away from Rehan's presentation, but so what you just showed us was a document that you wrote explaining how to do GitHub Actions, right, with .NET, which that right there, that's useful, right? That's because, like we said earlier, we're doing a GitHub action with .NET. You do it as a Docker file, and you can do whatever you want, whatever APIs, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, so here's the for context, the GitHub action we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to put together this app that generates this massive Markdown file of code analysis. So really, your document that you just presented here is a twofer, right? I mean, you're showing like as a bonus, here's this really cool API that you may not know anything about, right?
Yeah. It's just one example. So I did a kind of a Twitter ask and asked for folks what they would like to see, and this is what I landed on. So there's lots of. I mean, it's literally endless. You can do anything you want. It's pretty amazing. So I encourage people to check it out.
Yes,
Pretty
definitely. Cool. I know I'm going to.
I'm still not sure what happened there. I'm still trying to digest, but it does look super interesting. We did have one question I didn't want to ignore in the chat, and the question was asking, why the Docker container? What purpose does that serve in this overall end-to-end story that you've built out?
Yeah, so the Docker container is actually required if you're going to be using .NET, unless you use like a .NET global tool. Then you can do like CLI kind of scripty stuff with it, but then it's a little bit more manual. But in order to run a GitHub action, there's two flavors. It's either JavaScript or a Docker container.
Got it. And as our friend points out in the chat, you've got to be using Docker today to be taken seriously. So if it serves no purpose whatsoever, add Docker, instant credibility.
Awesome. That was longer than I wanted it to be, so I apologize to our guest.
All right, with that, let's hop into our hallway track.
So now what? Now we're going to learn about the fastest possible NuGet package ever, right? Is that it?
Probably.
The fastest one you can publish.
Right.
The quickest publish time.
So let's get into it.
Cool. So some time ago, like years ago now, I started this project called .NET Box. I should probably share my screen.
There you go.
And
Can you zoom
I
in a little bit?
started. Yeah, sure. I started this project because I found the Visual Studio project templates were a bit lacking. They're a bit basic, bit bare bones, and I wanted to write my own project templates with batteries included and like very minimal code on top just to make them useful. And you know, that there is a lot of boilerplate that you have to write when you're writing an API or a NuGet package or something. And, you know, you have to write your solution. You have to get the projects in the right folders. You have to do CI. So, you know, if you're doing a NuGet package, you have to do semantic versioning. You want to create a test project, maybe you want some documentation, a contributing guide. And then if you're using Git, you're using Git ignore files, Git attributes files. The list goes on, right? It's a lot of work, and all of that boilerplate just takes a lot of time. And that's before you've actually written any lines of code. That's just setup. If you're doing an API, say for example, if you want to do an open API or GraphQL or something, you're going to have to look at Swashbuckle or a library like Hot Chocolate or something. And that's going to take more time to learn those libraries and get started quickly. And that's before you've written any business logic. So, you know, what I really care about as a developer is getting stuff done. And to get stuff done, you need to write some business logic or you know, some code that actually does stuff. And I don't want to be writing all this boilerplate. So that's why I created these templates. And right now there's four templates. There's an API template, GraphQL, Microsoft Orleans, and a NuGet package one. And this is the one I'm going to talk about today really quick. So the idea is we try not to be too opinionated in these project templates, and we try to where we have to be opinionated, give an option, like provide some options for, like, you know, what source control are you using, so that we can hook up source links so that we can debug into the NuGet package, so people, you know, they can get in there and see what the code is doing. I wrote a blog post some time back called "The Fastest NuGet Package Ever Published," and I timed myself and to see how long it would take me to create a new project using my template, my NuGet package template, and get it published. And let me throw it out to you guys. How long do you reckon, if you had to set up a NuGet package project, get it published to GitHub packages and NuGet with automatic drafting of release notes, automatic semantic versioning of your NuGet package and assembly with GitHub labels, continuous integration using GitHub Actions, maybe AppVeyor or Azure pipelines as well, security vulnerability scanning, source link, like I just mentioned, and all of the nice things and best practices? How long do you think that would take you?
3 days.
I mean, at least I'm going to say at least an afternoon, at the very least, because I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, you just listed a lot of bullet points there that are you know, things that you would expect in like in a well done NuGet package, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to look up a lot of that stuff that I've never done.
Yeah, automatic semantic versioning. That's a huge one. Like the GitHub Actions. That's there's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of inner workings. There's a lot of API and secrets and blah. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
I'm going to go with a week, simply because I do it so infrequently that there'd be a lot of Stack Overflow driven development.
Mm-hmm. Right.
See, that's, yeah.
So I wrote this blog post. You can follow through the blog post, or you can just watch me do it in the next 5 minutes. Choice is yours. So we'll start off.
So wait. So the answer to the question right there, you just kind of blew by that. You said 5 minutes.
I can do it in 5 minutes.
Could you? So the blog post. Could you go back to the blog post, because I want to point something out real quick.
It's longer to read the blog post than it is to
go up to the you go up to the top of the blog post.
Pretty much the blog post boils down to this, right? And most of this is just like copy, paste, execute, and maybe rename.
At the top of your blog post, you have a how long to read. It says 6 minutes to read. So it takes you longer to read the blog post than it does to publish the.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, it doesn't boil down to a lot of commands. We can blow through this pretty quickly. Like I'm going to spend more time just talking about it than I will actually running the commands. Like we'll have to sit there and watch GitHub Actions run through as well. So bear with me.
It's my favorite show.
Let's do it.
Cool. So I'm using the GitHub CLI just to save time. So I'm creating a new repo under my account called fastest NuGet because we are.
Is there any way we could zoom in on the console some?
Sure. That good enough?
I'd do a little bit more, and then if you can make it a little bit wider too, that might be helpful.
Go full screen.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much.
Cool. So I'm going to install my templates. I've already done this, but it's pretty quick, and I'll show you what it looks like. So these are the box.templates. And we're using the .NET new command to create our templates. So we've now installed them. So these are the box templates over here. So you can just do .NET new and then one of these short names, and then that will create a template using the default options. If you want to see what the extended options are, you can just type in like .NET new and then the name of the short name, and then -- help to see what's in there. And then the screen's a bit big now, so
Sure.
The formatting's not great, but there are a bunch of options, and then you can see them on GitHub also. We'll now create the project. So I'm just going to do NuGet. I'm going to pass in a couple of parameters for like a title and a description, my GitHub username, and my GitHub project.
So these are, as you're typing this, I'm going to ask some questions. So with the help that you just showed there in these templates, that kind of speaks to what you had said before, where you mentioned that whenever there is an opinion to be had, you'll have a default, but then you'll also make that optional so that consumers of this can have a choice, right?
Exactly. So for example, some people don't like C# nullable reference types.
Sure.
I've turned that on by default, but if you want to turn it off, it's just -- nullable false.
Yeah.
So pretty easy. So if I bring up VS Code here, it's popped up on my other screen.
I love that you're using VS Code.
I thought it'd be quicker to load.
Yeah.
I don't normally use it for C# code.
Are you able to zoom in on this as well?
I am trying.
Wait
It's
for
going
it.
to take a second to load.
So
It's going to activate the extensions.
while we're
Yeah.
waiting for this to load, we did have a conversation before the show that, I think this is a point worth raising here. When you did the .NET new install command, some folks may have been looking at that and thought, well, that's fine, but I don't scaffold from the command line. Maybe I'm a Visual Studio Power user. In newer versions of VS, I think 16.9 and later perhaps, you can actually see those project templates in the File New Project dialog of Visual Studio.
Yeah, 16.9, you can see them. 16.10 is when solution templates will start working. So right now in 16.9, you can't have solution templates that work nicely. Scott Hanselman actually blogged about this, about my templates a few weeks back now, and he used 16.9. There was a slight bug in there. When you create a template, it creates a new solution for you instead of the one in the template, unfortunately. I'm having some trouble zooming in over here. Scroll wheel doesn't seem to be working for me.
You should be able to do plus, right?
Yeah, control plus. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have a bunch of files over here, and there's a GitHub folder here. So we've got like a bunch of GitHub stuff. So by default, we have support for GitHub. And we've got issue templates here for, when people want to raise a new issue, you want to give them some defaults.
Oh, I love
maybe
that.
A default label, describe the bug, how do we reproduce it, what's the expected behavior, feature requests, if somebody wants to request a feature, label it as an enhancement, what are the features. We've got some GitHub Actions workflows. So this one builds and tests and publishes the NuGet package. This one runs CodeQL security scanning. So if there's any security vulnerabilities in your dependencies or something, you'll find out about it. This runs on a cron job as well. So every now and then, you'll get notified. And then this is the automatic release notes drafting. So when you go to the releases section in GitHub Actions, which I'll show you in a sec, it will draft some release notes for you based on your PRs. and then there's some like configuration for it over here. And then you got like other GitHub stuff like a code of conduct, contributing guide, a pull request template, stuff like that. We got some images here for your GitHub package. So like an icon, there's like a hero image for, if you go into your GitHub repo settings, there'll be like a hero image that you can set up. So when you share your repo on Twitter, you get a nice image. And then there's actually source code. Like this is the stuff you care about, right? There's your project, class 1. Start writing some code. This is the stuff you actually care about. You don't have to write all this boilerplate. It's all done for you. And then
I want to pump the brakes real quick. So we have
Go
a
ahead.
person. We've got a person asking real quick. Does it work with F#?
So right now we don't have F# templates. That somebody's raised an issue about that before. But if you're willing to help me create some, let's talk. Like, raise an issue. We'll get something sorted out.
Awesome. And then the other thing I was going to say is the fact that you have images in there as part of your template, your box template, that means that I can only assume people who have used this thus far, being developers who are probably innately, lazy, there are countless now packages floating around NuGet that have your default images. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's a funny thing you said that. So my project templates have been around for years now. I used to have an MVC 5 template, and I used to get, because it was linking to my blog, I used to get notified from Google Analytics about all the different people who'd published the MVC website and link it with my, a link to my blog in it. And
that's amazing.
I was seeing hundreds and hundreds of just random like default websites. It's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we got a test project here. We have an editor config file. So I actually wrote this project here. So when you write templates, you start seeing gaps in things, and then you start filling them in yourself. So I wanted an editor config file, which kind of gives you like how many tabs and spaces to use, and if you're going into C# and .NET, gives you lots of code style options. So I started this project as well to give you nice code style, forcing you to use all the latest C# features and give you nice code fixes and stuff for that. So that's in here. You can choose not to have that. That's totally optional. And then like git ignores, right? Like,
such a tedious thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But then the one that everyone forgets, git attributes. Like,
right.
So if you care about cross-platform development and not just developing on Windows, you need to have some stuff in here to make sure that you're not messing around with line endings incorrectly. And then turning on git LFS. So if you have binary images in your repo, which we do have, by the way, you don't want to check them into your repo because that's just going to take loads of space and make your git cloning slow. So git LFS is like a separate hive where you can store all that, all your binary files. So some of that set up for you. And then things like, I'm using Cake here just for building, restoring, and testing the project and spitting out like code coverage into an artifacts directory and all your NuGet packages into an artifacts directories or pack. And then we've got like the metadata for your NuGet package, some metadata for like what type of what language you want to use, a latest C# version, enforcing code style on build, all of this stuff that you'd have to do that you just don't want to do, but it's some of this you may not even be aware of, but
that's
the fact that somebody is.
Line number 8, treat
time.
warnings as errors.
Yes.
I do that all the time. I have to manually go in there. So even that one little line, it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Tag,
you may not like this. You can turn it off. It's an option. So
one thing you breezed by was the tests. Now, out of curiosity, is there an option for determining whether or not I want to use X unit versus
not right now?
N unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now this is using X unit, but it could be an option. Yeah.
Right.
If you're interested, contact me.
Yeah. Because that's another choice, right? That's just another thing. I think this could benefit because there's lots of folks who prefer N unit or MS Test or one of the others out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
we've had people on the show in the past, Jason Bach, who I think he leans heavily towards NUnit for good reasons, and so I do see a need for a switch like that in the template.
Yeah.
The other thing
Yeah.
I wanted to call out that we sort of breezed by was the gitignore file. Just wanted to call attention to the fact that in the 6.0 SDK, there is an item template now for a gitignore file. So you could say,
That's right.
.NET new gitignore and instantly add a gitignore file to your project.
Yeah. Just to add to that, so there is no Git attributes template right now, though, or editor config, and the boxed.templates has that. So we got you covered where Microsoft forgot to add something. Cool. So that's the kind of quick rundown of the NuGet template. Like we should continue on our journey to get it published. So I'm just gonna quickly run a few commands that I'm gonna copy and paste, and these are GitHub commands to create labels in GitHub. So this is creating a maintenance label, a major label, a minor, and a patch label. And this will help with our versioning of our NuGet package very soon. The next step is one that we shouldn't need to do, but there's a bug in GitHub Actions right now, which is having trouble with NuGet restore. So you have to place a NuGet.config file into the repo right now. So it's just a default one. Hopefully this will get solved this week. So I was thinking of fixing this, but hopefully we won't need to do this for too long. And then I'm gonna just create a commit and push it to my repo and open that in my browser when that's published. Cool, pushed. And I'm gonna go here, refresh, and there's our repo. And I have a nice banner image. There's my badge over here, my CI status badge, my CI build chart. So right now we've got 2 builds running. So those are the yellow ones. You'll get nice green lines over here showing your CI build history. Let's go ahead. Go ahead.
And I know you covered the workflow files, but I feel like this is a good point, that kind of a good place to hammer the point home. This repository came into existence with CI out of the box.
Correct. Yeah, and
so, I mean, it's
building
right away.
Works. How many times have we created CI builds and it's failed, and then you do another check-in to see if it works, and then it still fails, and then again and again and again, rinse and repeat. Like,
well, so when you asked in the beginning of the show how long would this take, that was one of the reasons why my estimate was so high, 1 week.
Yeah,
it is rare for me to get CI right on the first pass.
Exactly.
In fact, I shouldn't even say rare. I should say it never happens on the first pass.
Right. So we have 3 CI builds over here. So this is a release drafter. This is drafted a release note for us. So if I go ahead and go to the releases tab, I will see a draft release note. So right now there's no changes over here. It's just the initial stuff. And also we've got a build running and CodeQuill security scanning running as well. So the next step is to add our NuGet API key. So I'm just going to go over to settings, secrets, and shove this in here. And then I'm going to move this to the other screen. So I don't want to see the world to see my NuGet API key, and add that secret. And we
appreciate that, because we would have to blur it out later.
Yeah, so I've got my NuGet API key now. And if I go over to the releases tab again, I'm going to draft, not draft a release. Go in here, edit this draft. And for the first ever release that you do, you have to pick a version. Subsequently, these versions are picked for you. And I'll show you how that works in a sec.
So does it have to be version 0.0.1, or can you just pick
No, you can pick whatever you want, anything you want. So versioning happens automatically now, as I'll show you. So let's go off and make a change to our repo really quick. So I'm just going to go to the README and .NET .rocks. So we've made that change, and I'm just going to go and push that using Git. And wow, that's really slow. Come on.
You can do it.
You can do it, yeah. So I'm just creating a branch here, adding my change, committing it, and pushing it all in one line. And there we go. Come on, you can do it. There we go. And if I go to pull requests, you should see the PR. We'll create that PR. And this is where the version number gets determined, and the release note drafting. So the first thing we need to do is decide, is this a minor, major, or patch change? So does this make a major breaking change? Is this a minor change that's just kind of incremental, adds a small extra feature, or is this a patch for a bug? And mine's I'm just going to do a patch for now. And then the other thing we need to decide is this a bug fix? Is this an enhancement to the NuGet package? Or is this just some maintenance I'm doing? And since it's just like, I've just changed the README, I'm just going to pick that. I'm going to create that pull request. And now if I go over to my releases, oh, I forgot to actually. So we get our builds and everything kicked off. You could wait for those to go green, but because I'm in a rush, I'm just going to assume that they are green and merge those.
Like every good developer, right?
Like,
Yeah, we wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's be quiet about that one.
We
then-
may or may not test the website in production.
Like
Right.
every time.
So just going back a step now, remember when we made the 0.01 release? So that kicked off a build in Ubuntu, Windows, and Mac OS. And we can have all of our, kind of, once this finishes, all of our build output are NuGet files. And then this is going to publish to GitHub packages as well, and NuGet also. So this is just working through now. And eventually, in a few seconds, we'll get a link appear over here to our GitHub packages, and a link appear here to NuGet also. So there's our link to GitHub packages, and I can go here, and there's my NuGet package in GitHub packages. And if I go back, here's my package on NuGet. And since I don't want to be like a bad citizen and like pollute NuGet with loads of empty packages, I've kind of done this before, and like that's why you see these are the version numbers. So if we go back to GitHub Actions now, Release Drafter has drafted a release for my new PR that I committed. And if I go back to releases, we have a new release that's automatically been drafted for us. And there's my PR over here. So there's a link to it. I get all the contributors who contributed to it, and it's showing as maintenance because I flagged it up as with a maintenance GitHub label. And then automatically, because it was a patch version, it incremented the version number, the patch version number to number 2. If I chose a minor version, it would go 0.1.0. If I did major, it would do 1.0.0. So very, very simple, using GitHub labels just to give you nice release notes. And I can go ahead now and go here, edit this draft.
Well,
And-
so again, I like how you keep breezing past things that are just like blowing my mind. So your whole semantic versioning thing is all based on that label on the PR.
On the PR, exactly. And I have another blog post over here, the easiest way to version NuGet packages. And it
I've
talks
used this
through
one, yeah.
how I'm doing that. So I'm using a package called Minver. Adam Ralph is the guy who wrote this thing, and it's amazing. It's the easiest way you can version anything in .NET and even outside .NET also. So my templates for GraphQL and OpenAPI, they use this thing to version Docker images also. So really good tool, Minver. And if you want to learn about how it's used and how to do semantic versioning, as in this infographic here, it's a really cool tool. You literally, all you need to do is install Minver over here as a NuGet package. And I just do that in the directory.build.props file. For those who don't know, this is a way of like affecting all of the projects in your solution. So basically the Minver NuGet package gets added to all the projects. And then you just need to, you can optionally add some configuration here. So I'm just setting the Minver verbosities. So when I run .NET build, it gives me some build output about like what Minver is doing, what version Minver has chosen. And the way Minver works is it looks at your Git tags. And that's what, if I go back to too many tabs, if I go over here and go to releases, right, and edit this draft, this here is a Git tag name. So it uses this Git tag name, figures out what the tag is, and uses that as the version number. If you don't have a Git tag, so if I was to just make some change, run .NET build, it would create a pre-release version number for you automatically as well. So very, very cool. And you know, pre-release version numbers, it will add all of these fancy numbers and the Git char at the end as well. So really cool.
So I have a question here. I've used libraries like NerdBank in the past for Git versioning.
Yeah.
How does that differ from this Minver library that you're using?
Good question. So NerdBank uses like a JSON file at the root to configure your version. Minver is just simpler. It just uses Git tags instead, which I prefer because it just makes this kind of whole flow very, very simple. If we publish version 2 now, 0.02, we'll get an action kicked off there as well, and then that will go off and get published to NuGet also. So that's my fastest ever NuGet package published.
That's awesome. I did want to throw this out there. We did have a guest ask a question, and I'm curious if you'd be up for the challenge. So they said, what's the easiest way they could include and generate code metrics using this template? So I pasted a gist in private chat that contains the workflow YAML. I'm curious if you might consider adding that real quick and pushing it and seeing if it'll create the markdown file, and we would have code metrics for this.
That would be pretty awesome. So if we just pasted this file into workflows, new file, metrics.yaml, and paste this guy in.
Yep.
Do I need to do anything here?
Nope. You should just be able to save, push, and it should run, and you should get a new GitHub action execution, which would run that, and away we go. We could see if it works.
Let's do it properly with a PR as well, so we get a new version. So easy.
This is really cool. One of the other ideas I had when you were showing this was the potential for automatically labeling issues based on the discovery.
Yeah, we already do that. So
love it.
If we go to the release drafter config, so we don't do it in this particular NuGet package template, but in one of the other templates, in the API template. In fact, I do it here in this very.
I love
it. I go to release drafter.
That's awesome.
There's a way you can do auto labeler.
Yep.
And you just say, like, if you change any of these files, add the maintenance label automatically. Doesn't get every label for you,
but close enough. Yeah.
You know, close enough. It does most of the job for you.
I love that. That's awesome.
So add metrics, and let's add a label of like enhancement, I guess.
And documentation maybe, because it's kind of like a self-serving update.
Yeah. Documentation, create the pull request.
I'm really hopeful this will work because I've never actually done
And
this outside of my.
let's see if the CI builds kick off for us automatically. Might need to refresh. Let's see. There we go. And that one didn't pop up, but maybe because I need to merge it first.
Yeah, go to Actions now and be curious if it's running.
.NET Code Metrics.
Bum, bum, bum. So then you should end up with a pull request automatically that would have the code metrics markdown file that would be the analysis of your templates. I'm really
Cool.
curious. That would be.
Does this take long to work?
Not super long. I mean, probably under 30 seconds or so.
Okay. This is an amazing synergy between David and myself over here.
This was not planned. This was
not planned. This was totally off the cuff.
We did say unscripted in the beginning, so we're good to go.
Unscripted,
If
like
this fails,
magical.
no refunds.
no refunds. But if it works, I'm gonna take an early day off. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I think we deserve a pay rise, I think, after this.
Oh, wait for it. All right, so now it's pulling the labels here. Those are the individual steps. So these are the different steps within the Docker file. So those, now it's doing the checkout. It's pulling that down. It's actually running the code analysis, did that, and it's going
It's creating a pull request.
Wait for it. All right, it's cleaning up after itself.
If I go here now.
And you hit refresh.
Is it done?
Wait for it. No.
Might need a second.
Oh, it probably doesn't work. It probably failed. Go back.
Oh no, go back.
Testing in production. So go to expand the code metrics one. I want to see what the output was there because there's a little bit of output that might happen.
Is it going to let me expand? Come on. Wake up.
Wait for it.
There we go.
So
is that it?
No, it should have. So go to, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, no.
Almost.
You get what you get. I'm actually looking over here too. .NET Code Metrics. Why did this not work? It seems to have worked. It was happy. See, yeah, I guess. Is there not actually any C# in here? There is for the templates, right? Yeah, the source.
Yeah.
Fastest. Oh, there's just a single class. Maybe it was so small. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, there is only one class in there, so maybe that's why.
I'm going to go ahead and paste this into chat for our friends who are watching. This is my secret gist, and you can. This is kind of hard to see, isn't it? That's going to be really difficult for people to copy. Is there a better way to throw that in chat somewhere else? But there's a gist, and you can kind of see how it how that does code metrics. And I encourage you to look more at the tutorial itself. That's probably the best source. But ideally, you'd be able to throw that workflow in there, ingest it, and all of a sudden you'd get code metrics.
I have a prediction. My prediction is that once we get off here, and I know you usually have like lunch with your family around this time. I'm going to say sometime probably within the next 2 hours, like give you enough time to eat, and then you're going to like hit this. I bet the solution winds up on your Twitter, within hours.
I feel a blog post coming on, possibly tonight.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It should have worked. It didn't work, but.
Too bad for that pay rise.
Yeah. You jinxed us with it. I'm going to blame you.
I was just introduced to a new term. We've heard WYSIWYG. Now we know WYGIWYG. What you get is what you get.
Oh, that's awesome. No, this has been great. Thanks for accepting that quick challenge ad hoc. That was a lot of fun. So I'll ask that you keep going now, and sorry for the diversion.
No worries. Well, the only other thing that I was going to say is that, we have a few other templates over here, and pretty much this whole talk that I've given could be repeated for like an API or a GraphQL API. But the only difference being that we'd be publishing, instead of publishing a NuGet package, we'd be publishing a Docker image to Docker Hub or somewhere. And we do the whole 9 yards, like similar sort of release process with like Docker image with ARM64 support and all of the fancy features that you get in when you're building an Open API or GraphQL API.
Awesome.
So how complicated then is it to combine like the templates here? Like if we need to put a ASP.NET Core API using this template, if we need to put that inside a NuGet package, is that something we can do?
Create a template inception.
Mhm.
You could, so I have certainly thought about creating a template. That's on my list of things to do. And then you could quite easily do that. So creating a template just involves creating a NuGet package really, and you just add an XML element in there to say that it's a template. Actually, Saeed did a show on the .NET YouTube channel just a few days ago, so I would go check that out, and that explains how you can create a template. So a really good resource there. He actually mentions .NET Boxed in it as well, so this is kind of a good timing continuation from his talk on that front.
Cam, I thought you were going in a different direction with that question, where you were talking about a solution-based template, so multiple projects within the same solution file.
I was, but where it ended up, I went ahead and took that too, because that was also another question on my mind. So either one.
Right. So far, all the templates are solution templates, right? And I started off with project templates, but with project templates, you can't really get the full power. You don't get. I couldn't do all of this GitHub stuff if I just had a project template. You need a solution template to get the end-to-end flow that I just gave. And if you wanted to, it's pretty easy to copy and paste a project into this solution and go from there. So at the end of the day, it is still a template, and there is some code and configuration required on the part of the developer.
Are there any opinions that come through? I know that David Fowler is a huge proponent of like the SRC, like source directory, and then the test directory, and then having the project hierarchy underneath those. Is that imposed here? Is that possible also with the templating?
So that is a really good question. So this is something that I've kind of had to battle with a lot, where most of the time I try my best to avoid, hard decisions, opinionated decisions like that. And but this is one of the times where you have to do that. I have to make a decision where you're going to come down. So I went with folder names, source test images.github. Like you could create a project from this template and rename those. Totally up to you. But yeah, it would be nice if I could make this an option somehow. But I don't think the templating engine is quite powerful enough to be able to do that right now.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think the .github, that has to stay as is, right?
Correct, yeah.
And then also, I noticed that you have like a license MD file. Another question I have is...
Also an option.
I was going to say, is that an option? Yeah. So you get to choose like MIT or like whatever the standard GitHub ones are.
So right now you can choose MIT or none. Because those are the most popular options, but I'd take a PR for any others people are interested in adding.
Well, I know what I'm going to be contributing to in the future. Oh, my brain is just racing right now. There's so many different things that are like, this is amazing. This is, first of all, thank you so much for putting this together. I'm certain that all of the consumers of it thus far have been very appreciative. It saves them a ton of work. So just over time, the amount of people that you're helping that's awesome.
I'd be interested in knowing how many stars got added to the .NET Boxed project while we were talking here.
All I can say is probably not enough. We need more. Go start. Let
We
them
got
know that it's loved.
2,600 stars right now. So I don't think I'd see a tick over unless I got more than 100 stars. But
We've got more than 163 people live right now. Go click it and see what we can do. Let's get to 2.7.
So we're
Cheers.
at the 5-minute mark for the show. Were there any resources you wanted to share with the viewers?
Yeah, so you can definitely check out the .NET Box templates repo. There's a kind of a framework repo. So there's some code that I had to end up writing for some of the other templates, like the API template and the Swagger template and and I also ended up writing a NuGet package to actually test templates as well. So box.net test. So this actually runs .NET Restore, .NET Build in a unit test and make sure that my template is not broken, because with so many options, it's quite easy to break a template. So like if, in this case, I'm turning on a status endpoint option, I'm setting it to true or false, and then running .NET Restore and .NET Build and making sure that the template doesn't fail to build. So if anyone's interested in writing templates, definitely check that out. Just if you're interested in contributing, if you have any ideas, raise an issue and we'll certainly get to it.
And I assume you have a contributor's guide out here as well that shows.
Definitely. If I didn't have a contributor's guide after all that, I didn't deserve to be on the .NET Doc show.
Trying to shine a spotlight on this and make people successful.
Yeah. That's really
all right. Any closing thoughts? So we've got this resource. Anything you wanted to leave the viewers with before we wrap up the show?
I hope this helps loads of people, and there's loads of new NuGet packages with code I recognize next time I see some GitHub repo. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm curious real quick. Another question for you is, like, how long have you been actually doing like .NET development?
Oh, years. More than a decade, I think. I started doing templates back before .NET New, and when there was, writing a template meant writing a Visual Studio extension, which was really difficult, let me tell you. So I was using, there was this project that Saeed wrote called Sidewaffle.
Oh, yes.
And I wrote a Sidewaffle extension and then had an ASP.NET MVC5 template, which is still on Visual Studio Gallery right now, and was at one point the most used template extension on Visual Studio. So hopefully when this .NET New template system arrives on Visual Studio on the like GUI instead of the CLI, we'll get a ton more usage, because I know there are a lot of developers who don't quite use the .NET CLI, and it's not very discoverable right now. You have to know to come to the GitHub page to see how to use this thing, or see this show. So hopefully when next time you go to in Visual Studio 16.10, if you run, as long as you run this command .NET New install box.templates, you will see the box templates in file new project, and then you can kind of put in a project name, check all the boxes, and select lists and things, and pick all the options and hit new project.
So I'm curious now. That makes me think, like, from the GUI like that with Visual Studio, is there going to be? Does it pick up on your templates options? Does it know? Does it create?
Yes. There's a UI
automatically.
Yes, there is actually a UI
where
really you can select all the options. Actually, Scott Hanselman blogged about it.
I'll have to check that out and share that here. No, that's awesome. So I'm anticipating this is going to be more like an open marketplace. Are they discoverable too? Is that like another thing where you can start kind of?
Right now, they are not discoverable, unfortunately. So hopefully that will come soon. So this is Scott Hanselman's blog post where you have to enable this preview feature.
Yep.
You run .NET new install box templates. Then you see the templates over here, and then you can actually select all the options and just type them in and hit
awesome.
Create. So this currently, there's a slight bug in this in the current version of Visual Studio where it will create a new solution for you instead of the solution inside the template. So you just have to close that solution and open the one in the file system. But the next version of Visual Studio 16.10, which is currently in preview, will have that solved.
Lots of love here from our viewers. Thank you again so much. This has been awesome. Who do we have next week?
We have Robert Rosas, who's going to come on and talk about .NET Linux containers optimization. That was a mouthful.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to that one. I'm seeing if I can improve some of the Docker containers I have in my templates based on that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Take care. Bye, friends.
See you later. Bye-bye.